This is Drilling Insight, where we talk about ideas and issues that affect the drilling and groundwater industries. I'm Jeremy Verduzco, host and editor of The Driller. With me today is co-host and drilling expert, Brock Yordy. Good morning, Brock.
Good morning. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing really well. Glad to see that the days are getting longer and the sun is shining. I just need the temperature to catch up a little bit, but other than that, not too bad. So
Excellent.
So on today's show, we have Cameron Fox. Thanks for being on the show, Cameron. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate being here. Thanks, guys.
So Cameron owns Fox Custom Home Builders in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And you might think, why do we have a builder on here? But Fox in particular works with a lot of drillers for custom homes that may require private water wells in, the areas of Michigan that he works. So we brought him on to share his perspective on contracting with drilling companies. So take it away, Rob.
This is one of my favorite questions, and this week we get to tweak it a little. Cam, did you choose the construction industry or did it choose you?
So I think that's a tough question, and I'll kind of give you a tweaked answer, I guess. So I was kind of always the kid, pile Legos, tree houses, sports, always doing that kind of thing. And uh, through high school, I worked for a home builder. Um, and then through college, I had a decking and fencing company. And then after college, I did a financial sector for a few years and realized it kind of wasn't maybe for me. I didn't see myself there in 25 years. And even while I was doing that, I was still kind of doing decks and things that I enjoyed on the weekends, kind of as a sub business. I guess side hustle is what people called it now. But so I ended up going back into the field, into construction. So um, I guess it kind of chose me in the beginning, and then I went back to it, I guess.
So you've been in this business for a while, but we've seen a lot of news lately about how hot the home market is. How have things changed from your perspective over the last couple of years? How does it look for you cost wise to build a home these days?
So as far as like a business operating standpoint, I don't think much has changed. I mean, obviously, as you scale, your fixed costs and accrued costs and things will scale with you. Your insurance, stuff like that is always going to, scale with you. So I don't know if that has changed that much. Um, Mostly material pricing, wages are up, which I don't necessarily disagree with because I do think that there are a lot of trades that in the past perhaps they had a bigger wage gaps than some of the others. So I do like seeing that kind of catch up. Um, but as an overall as a home, prices are up. Everything's kind of up, and it's probably increased faster than um, the market probably wanted to see it. But there still is housing shortages and things like that in a lot of different markets around the country. So um, people are going to pay that price and pay a little bit more of a premium for a new home.
Cam, what is that price difference between 2020 1,800 square foot house to 2022 right now?
Um, it really depends. It depends on the size of the home. Obviously, the lumber is where most costs is incurred right up front. 2020 somewhere in there, you're around $400 or $500 a board foot, and now you're 1,600. So you can do the math kind of there. An average home, I'd say, you're probably lumber packages are, 20 to $30,000 more right off the bat. So that can accrue a significant cost, especially when you start doing a larger homes, uh, bigger truss systems, things like that. That cost adds up quite quickly.
So that leads me into my next question. We see this with lumber. Now you bring in a subcontractor or a water well driller. What does it cost to install a well today that you're getting quotes on versus what it was in 2020?
Um, it it's tough to say. We drill in a lot of different areas, but I would say you're probably uh, 20-30% more. But I think a lot of that is going to also be, um, your material prices has increased just as everybody else's has. Labor's probably a little bit increased as well, just as everybody else has. Um, and then you have all of your materials, your pumps, everything like that. So I think that's going to be just a natural progression as well. That's just going to increase a little bit. Um, it's still only about 2% of your home's actual total cost. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge line item in the build process.
Yeah. So like looking at your, I mean, you don't have to go into detail, obviously, but like looking at your P&L, how does the cost of, a well install as part of a home, how does that compare to other subs like, septic or maybe HVAC?
Yeah. I don't think it's increased as much. Um, it it has increased. Their materials and things have increased too. Wages have increased. There I know several contractors where they kind of almost get in a bidding war to retain employees. So labor has gone up. Uh, Especially journeyman things at that level. That has been very competitive. I think late as of late even. So but I don't know if it's even increased as much as some of the other trades, to be honest.
We at the Driller like to say drilling is like discovering the unknown. What is the hardest part of coordinating with a water well drilling company when you're building a custom home?
Um, there's a lot of different factors. I mean, the biggest one of the biggest hurdles is usually just the placement right off the bat. It kind of seems like a no-brainer, but we do a lot of lake homes. So uh, getting it put in a position that it can be accessed, you can actually service the well, and also, your lots are just not that big. So people tend to take up, with a non-conforming lot, you can build a much bigger footprint, closer to the property lines, things like that. So getting it placed in a position where it's not going to be in the way, and then even just getting from the well to the interior of the home to your utility room, you know, um, constant pressure systems, things like that to take up less space in the utility room. People want to maximize all the room in their homes. They don't want to waste it on big utility rooms with tanks and things like that. And just getting it into the home. If your utility room is in, you know, uh, the center of the home, how do you get everything to that? Stuff like that can be um, kind of a challenge. And obviously with a well contractor, somebody that's doing it every day, all day, leaning on them a little bit for some help on that is usually a good rule of thumb.
When you're responsible for building the complete package, how do you hand off the responsibility of the well to the owner and the well driller? We can look at foundations and see something. We can look at the floors, everything that you're directly connected to. And now suddenly we have this well that's complete, and it's a well, but you didn't construct the screened zone. It's very much a relationship between a driller and a homeowner. How do you handle that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of the subcontractors, obviously HVAC, plumbing, before the finishes of the home, we can kind of see everything that's going on. You can see, if there's going to be an error or if you can see something might be potentially in the way of something else, things like that. Whereas with a drilling contractor, you can't really see any of that. There's no physical view of it. So you have to really rely on that contractor to, produce the well and make good judgment calls and really give you a well that's going to produce what the homeowner needs. You know, uh, if the contractor's asking you a lot of questions, are they going to have a pool? Sprinkler systems, spas, how many bathrooms are in the home, things like that, so that they can make sure and get the water pressure, make sure the well's going to produce the adequate amount for that home. That's always a great sign. Um, but kind of when the home's complete, transitioning that over to the well contractor too is we have a big warranty book that has a list of the contact information of all of our subs that were involved in the home, uh, specifications of the homes, unique things that the homeowners might need to know 10, 15 years down the road when they can't remember who built the house anymore, that they can go back and reference, you know. So I include the DEQ logs, the site plans, um, pump package information, stuff like that, as well as that contractor's contact information. That way the homeowner's aware of it, and if you ever need to go back and reference anything, that information is available.
What about timeline? When we look at, there's a point where you're building where you have to have water, but let's face it, I talk to a lot of drillers right now and they're 120 days out on some things. How is that affecting your builds?
Yeah, so that can be tough too, especially when you get into, drywall phase, things like that. Guys need water, um, tile, depending on where you're at. Um, if you're someplace pretty rural, it's pretty hard to bring all that water on site every day. You got to have tile and mixture mortar for all the interior finishes of the homes. Drywallers like to have water on site for that. So you kind of really got to be pretty proactive, and planning is, months out. The house might not even be, foundation might not even be dug. You might just be barely working on the site plan, but calling your contractor, letting him know, hey, this project is moving forward. This is kind of the timeline, and really, monthly updates until you start getting down to it is what you want to be in constant contact with. Otherwise, yeah, you could be stuck for several months without having water, and it could slow the house down.
Yeah. So I have a final question, but before that, I want to revisit the kind of contractor sub relationship. So as the builder, you're kind of the conductor in this situation, right? You work with several subs, right? So what do you look for in that relationship, or what sets a sub apart where you like, I'm going to do business with this person again?
Yeah, well, I kind of hit on it a little bit, but you know, me as a home builder, I can only know so much about each category. And so we tend to use, no matter what size of the home, I tend to try to use the same contractors over and over again. And if I am venting a new contractor, or we're using somebody we probably haven't used before, something like that, if that contractor is asking a lot of questions and suggestions, that's probably a contractor you want to work with, because he's not just looking at things for face value. He's actually wanting to give input into the project, some insight into something, maybe I don't know, or maybe I have overlooked. And, that's really kind of what you want to look for. You want to look for somebody that's not just there to do the job, but wants to do the best job, or, help facilitate something uh, before it's a problem.
Mhm, mhm. So, you've been doing this for a while. You have your background in finance, but whether it's home building or well drilling, running a business isn't easy. So, as a business owner, what types of advice do you give to people who, you know, you're talking to them at a party and they're like, I'm kind of thinking about making that leap. What do you tell folks in that situation?
Oh, you know, ask a lot of questions. It's kind of, I mean, it
Come
kind
back
of
to the
sounds,
questions.
yeah, I'll still ask questions. You don't know what you don't know until you learn, and asking different subcontractors, or whatever phase of business you're going into, you can always ask somebody, why are you doing it this way? Or why would you approach the situation this way? It's just always going to give you more insight into whatever you're doing. And you never know what you might learn that you can apply into a situation that can really help you out. Um, Processes, you know, writing things down, keeping a log of, that wasn't going quite smooth that last time. Maybe I should take a few notes. And then before we get to that step in the process next time, let's look and see maybe what didn't work, what worked, and maybe try to do something a little different. Um, Also, I think a big one too, people forget, is just reflection. I think just scheduling time. It doesn't have to be very often, maybe once a month, and just kind of think about where your business is at. Where is it going? Where do you want it to go? What's maybe giving you some hiccups? What's a problem? that, you run into, what can we maybe do differently? I think just having some time to not have anything to do is more valuable than you would think. Um, just to kind of think about things.
Okay. Well, with that, we will wrap up today's episode. So thanks again, Cameron. So, you were just talking about the intention behind being in business, and I find this with my own side hustle that it's being in business is really just about making decisions over and over. Just making decisions in one direction repeatedly and repeatedly, and eventually you get results. And I find that approach kind of refreshing. What do you think, Brock?
I agree. Growing up in the industry and being part of the family business, you have that freedom, but at the same time, you have great responsibility on the people you're working for, the people that you work with, the materials, and things are changing. I think this is the most dynamic time that I've ever experienced when it comes to new home builds, to homes being sold in my neighborhood, to contractors seeing everybody saying, we're busy and there's no trucks. There's so many, supply chain is crazy. It's to be a contractor today is very much different than the 90s when everything seemed to be just the epic boom. And I know my grandfather and father talked about the late 70s, early 80s, and like that era of time where things slowed way down. But this is gangbusters, and I feel like people will pay anything to get into a home, you know, get their home built. But at the same time, you're like, how can I spend this when I know it cost 50% less 2 years ago?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, Cameron, where can the audience find out more about you?
You can get a hold of us on foxbuilders.com. We're also on Instagram, Fox Custom Builders. That's about it.
Fantastic. Well, you can find fresh episodes of our show on our website or on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Search Drilling Insight and hit that subscribe button, folks. And don't forget to visit thedriller.com for the latest industry news and views. And of course, follow us on the usual social media channels. So until next time, this is Drilling Insight.